Hello weirdos, welcome to my channel. My name is EmmaAbe and today I have finally coming out with a video that I have been working all year on, and that is my grand video slash undertaking to read all of the books that won last year's 2019 GoodReads Choice Awards. And I know that the GoodReads Choice Awards is basically a popularity contest. The goal behind reading all of these different books was for me to try books in different genres that I wouldn't typically read. So this includes things like thrillers, historical fiction, fantasy, like all these different things that are basically nonfiction. And I wanted to share like my experience, and go through each of the books that I read, or at least each of the winners, and talk about how I feel about this whole popularity contest. Let's get straight to it. I'm not gonna waste any more of your time. Here we are, best books of 2019. Let's start off with the fiction. The winner was The Testaments. This is by Margaret Atwood. I did not read prior to going into this The Handmaid's Tale. What I had to do was I had to read The Handmaid's Tale. And I enjoyed The Handmaid's Tale. I loved the ambiguity and how I feel about The Testaments itself. I felt like this was an unnecessary book. I don't feel like The Handmaid's Tale needed a sequel or a follow-up that kind of talked about the fall of Gilead. That being said, I still enjoyed it. I liked hearing the three different women's tales. I liked how they came together in the end. Some of the parts I thought were a little bit more predictable than others. Yeah, and again, I like the ambiguity that was still in there. As far as how I feel about this winning the best fiction, I can't really say, so let's look at some of the other books that were in the fiction category. So I did read Normal People because halfway through the year I decided that I was going to try and read like one or two other books from some of the other categories, and Normal People was one I got to read. Normal People is by Sally Rooney. It tells the story of it's a coming of age story between these two young people, and I'm gonna be honest, I didn't feel much about it. It didn't really do much of anything for me. I didn't really like it in any particular way, but I also didn't hate it. There wasn't anything about it that made me want to vomit or I thought was particularly problematic. I just didn't care. I thought it was a little bit pretentious, and I just did not care about the characters. So just based off the two I read, I know, and just kind of going off of votes, I know that The Testaments coming out was a huge thing. Yes, I would agree that it is a quote-unquote popularity contest, but I also think that it deserved to win over the total books that I read in this category, which was 2, so take that as you will. The next category was mystery and thriller, and the Silent Patient won for this. I don't read a lot of thrillers or mysteries. Sometimes I feel like I could get more into thrillers, but mysteries are kind of hit or miss for me. I don't read a lot of them on this channel because I just don't gravitate to that genre in general, and really anything that I consume unless there's another part, something else going on that really keeps me interested in the characters or other things that are happening. As far as The Silent Patient, I thought it was really interesting setup. I really liked it. I thought the payoff was kind of bullshit. The whole explanation for her silence was kind of stupid in my opinion. I'm sorry. I thought it was a really interesting idea, but when it was explained, I was like, this is stupid. I love the dual timeline thing. That was great. Sorry, that's kind of spoilery, but yeah, overall I just kind of felt apathetic towards it. I know there's a lot of buzz around this book, and I wanted to read My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite, but I did not get the opportunity to read that, and I didn't read any of the other books. So I can't really say if this is like a popularity contest or not. But a historical fiction. So historical fiction was Daisy Jones. One was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Very popular. Everyone was raving about it. I didn't particularly care for this. I didn't love it. I also didn't hate it in the depths of my soul. I gave it 4 stars. I think thinking back on it now, I would give it a 3. So changing it just because I just didn't care really at all. The story didn't really stick with me, and I read this a while ago. I think it's an interesting idea with the whole narrators, but I just don't find the concept of hearing a band's story that interesting in general. So in that way, it had it kind of going against it. I'm not completely opposed to historical fiction. I quite like it in a lot of things. I just don't think that this particular book wasn't for me. I did wind up reading The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead, and I enjoyed that significantly more than Daisy Jones and the Six. I loved the archaeology aspects that it brought into it and the connection to like real life and really bringing history to life. And doing that research is something that I greatly enjoy and I love seeing in historical fiction, and I greatly appreciate. It's a story about these bunch of boys who are sent to Nickel, which is like a reformatory school, and the abuse that they suffer. And it's not great. Particularly focuses on men of color and boys of color. And while everyone received abuse and mistreatment, people of color particularly received abuse and mistreatment at Nickel. And yeah, it's gross and disgusting. And there's just a huge disparity between the two in terms of like votes. And I kind of get why Daisy Jones and the Six is kind of a book that you would want to pick up more than the Nickel Boys, because Nickel Boys is such a heavy topic. And I haven't read any of the other books, so I can't make any comments. But yeah, for me personally, I think that the Nickel Boys like just deserved it a little bit more. But again, this is going off of 2 data points, so take that as you will. Let's go to the next category, which is fantasy. I'm not gonna lie, I thoroughly enjoyed Night House. I think there's just something about necromancy and dealing with like the dead that I've been really into this year. The Ninth House is a book that I've been like snooping around trying to like pick up, and this is actually my first Leigh Bardugo book, and I liked it. I can't wait for the sequel to come out. I'm very interested to read more of her work, and she's definitely like an author that I'm gonna be dipping more into in future years. Unfortunately, I didn't read any of the other books. One book that looked particularly interesting to me is Gods of Jade and Shadow, because the whole mixing of Native American beliefs and like Aztec and Mayan beliefs into like this journey through Mexico City and like this god of death, that looks really interesting too. But I did not. So again, I have one data point. I meant to read The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, but I just ran out of time. Fantasy in general is a genre that I do like. I'm really, really partial to right now, currently, and probably for like the foreseeable future, definitely more of a Eastern fantasy bend. So if you know anything like wuxia. So if you have any like Eastern fantasy recs that you think would be great, let me know in the comments down below. That'd be very helpful. Romance. So I am not gonna lie, I had a fun time with romance this year. The winner was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. It is a fluffy book that I just love to eat. It was like eating cotton candy. I thoroughly enjoyed both characters. I thought they were really cute. I love the queer rep in it. There's just something about like a gay guy and a bi guy getting together that I've been really into this year. I don't know what it is. Anyway, like their relationship is cute. I've got questions in terms of like how it works like later down the line, and I would love to see a sequel for this because there are questions that are left open and need to be addressed in this book. But if you just kind of like turn your brain off a little bit, especially towards the end, it's cute. In terms of the other books, I read none of the other romance books. That being said, Honeymooners was one that I was looking at. Don't remember why I was not considering looking at Verity. Yeah, again, romance is a genre that I typically don't consume through books, or if I do, it is consumed through like other genres. Because for me, with like romance, I like to have like other things happening, so it's not solely like focused on like a romantic relationship. It's like a romantic relationship forming through like another story. Next is science fiction. So the winner of science fiction was Recursion by Blake Crouch. I really enjoyed it. I think it's kind of like more in like the middle of the range. I definitely enjoyed it more than Daisy Jones and the Sixth. It was definitely like up there, but it wasn't like Ninth House for me where I like really, really enjoyed it. All like the multiple timelines is just a really interesting idea, and I love like what was done with it. It's not my favorite thing to see in science fiction. I don't gravitate towards time travel stories. So then we go down to the other nominees, and I actually read more than one. Dark Age I did not read because it was like the 5th book in a series and I did not want to have to read 5 other books. So I skipped to Gideon the Ninth. I enjoyed that thoroughly. I bought the book. I would struggle to classify that as science fiction. To me, it seems a lot more fantasy. There really isn't a lot of science like being thought through, like what is happening the way that like Recursion had. When I think of science fiction and I'm looking at Recursion and Gideon the Ninth, I definitely fall more in like the Recursion camp in terms of that's what's science fiction. The other book I read was The Deep by River Solomon, and I enjoyed that book a lot. Again, I think it falls into like the same trap where I think it falls a little bit more into fantasy. And all three of these books I would recommend. I did tend to like The Deep and Gideon the Ninth more than I liked Recursion, but I think that might just be like my slight preference to fantasy over science fiction in general. So I don't know. I think that, but overall, I just think that science fiction doesn't seem to always fall strictly into the science fiction for this specific category. Horror Institute won by Stephen King, and I didn't find it scary. I don't know if it's just me not finding Stephen King scary, or maybe it's just because for me, like what I find horror in is grounded in reality. Like the horror of losing your memory or of like mob mentality, that's scary. I thought it was fine. It was like one of the newest Stephen King books. My brain sometimes comes back to like think on it in some elements of the book. Kind of lost it for me at the end. For the most part, like it's fine. Like if you like Stephen King, you'll probably like this. I'm not a huge connoisseur of Stephen King, so I can't really tell you. And then I also read Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chomsky, and you can see my ratings. And it tore my heart out to give Imaginary Friend that rating, but I just felt like there were some deeply problematic aspects of the book that did not need to be there and would be very easily fixable, and it got a little bit too religious for me at the end. I would have way more enjoyed the explanation of what the frick was going on to be just like general like demon things, whereas like this is very tied to Christianity, and I did not enjoy it. That being said, this doesn't really have anything to do with the girl who's dealing with a shit ton of Catholic guilt, because that's real. I loved like the length of it. Some people complained that it was too long, but I think like the really slow burn of it really worked well for me, and the building of relationships and the slow tension and just the building of everything, that really worked well for me. But again, there were just problematic aspects like the baby boy being dyslexic and then being cured of his dyslexia, and then it's never dealt with again, where you do not need to do that in the book. So for all, like, horror was just kind of like a dud. Horror was okay. Do I think the Institute deserved to win? Sure. I'm sure there's other scarier books on here, so like yes and no. Yeah, but I definitely think that it got that because it was popular, not that it was actually a good horror book. Humor. Dear Girls by Ali Wong was yeah, well worth it. I loved that. But I love Ali Wong. I think she's awesome and I love her humor. So if you like her humor style, you're gonna like this book because it's essentially her Netflix specials with different content, but in a book. And she narrates the book herself. So that was great. Very, very funny. And then, so I really enjoyed that. Then the other book I read was Chelsea Handler's Life Will Be the Death of Me. And I did not enjoy that as much. I don't know who Chelsea Handler is. I didn't find the book particularly funny. There was a little bit too much dark, heavy, depressing shit that wasn't balanced out by the necessary levity. Not saying that you can't do that, but it just felt very like cathartic to read for her, and I didn't really feel any connection to it, and I didn't really enjoy it, but I didn't hate it either. So it was kind of like a middle of the road. So I guess you should read this. It's a 3. I'm so bad at keeping up with my ratings. And I didn't read anything else in the humor category this year. Humor is not a genre that I gravitate to, like, at all, in terms of, like, reading books in it. I like humor in my books, but I don't know if I could read a book solely based in the humor category, even though I really, really liked Ali Wong. But I think that is a very particular case because I really like Ali Wong and I had that personal interest, whereas I did not have that with Chelsea Handler, which I'm sure if you were a Chelsea Handler fan and you liked her, you might enjoy that book more than I did. Let's get to the meat and potatoes, the nonfiction section. Okay, bud. Girl, stop apologizing. Did not like this book. I think it was not necessarily a steaming pile of garbage, but look at my rating. I just take issue with, like, Rachel Hollis, and I don't want to get into any of the drama. There's a lot of people that do it way better than me. I do not like her wishy-washy stance on MLMs. I don't think MLMs are a good thing. And she supported them, but, like, is now backing out of them, but, like, half-heartedly, so whatever. But my main issue with this book is that, like, the broad ideas are really great, and I do, like, agree with that to the most part. But when she's elaborating and giving those nitty-gritty details and explaining herself, it completely destroys her points. And it gets into lots of, like, body shaming and ableism and just classism and entitlement. It does not feel good at all. I do not gravitate to self-help books at all. Not that I don't need help, I do. Inspiring bullshit does not do it for me. I like reading the more informative works in terms of nonfiction. So let's get into the books that I did read. I read a lot of books. So I read Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb, Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow, Three Women by Lisa Taddeo, American Predator by Maureen Callahan, She Said by Jodi Cantor and Megan Tolley, Parkland by Dave Cullen, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. Those are the books that I read. Of those, ones that I think were more deserving, really any of them. I also wanted to read Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered, but again, I ran out of time. So out of the ones that I think could have won, of the ones that I read, definitely up there is Maybe You Should Talk to Someone, She Said, and How to Be an Anti-Racist. Those would be my, like, top 3 picks over the ones that I read. And if I just pick a specific one, it would be She Said, just because I think that was a really good piece of reporting and was really well done. It's less textbooky than How to Be an Anti-Racist is. It's a little less wishy-washy than Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. And this way you definitely see the popularity contest issue coming in. So let's just move on to memoir, not a biography. The best memoir was Over the Top, A Raw Journey to Self-Love by Jonathan Van Ness, and I thought that that was fun and cute, and it was funny, but it was also heartfelt. It was a solid book. Do I think it should win? Well, let's look at the books that I read in the other categories. So we have next Know My Name, Me by Elton John, How We Fight for Our Lives by Saeed Jones, In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, and that's all the ones that I read. I'm gonna be honest, to me there was a clear winner, and that is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. But that's just because that book is didthebomb.com. I have it right here. Like, holy shit, if you've not read Know My Name, what the fuck are you doing? If you read one book out of all the books that I've talked about and read, read Know My Name, because it was that good. So difficult to read, but also so good and worth the time. That way I felt like this is definitely a popularity contest, and that one just because Jonathan Van Ness's name is attached to it. That being said, I did not hate it either, and it's a good book to read too. It can be difficult at times, but Know My Name definitely should have won. That's just my tea. Then we have The Five by Hallie Rubenhold. And this I was, again, pretty apathetic towards. Just was okay. I don't know what else to say. There's lots of buzz about this book and nonfiction circles, and I think that's kind of why it won. So let's look at the books that I read. So there's Midnight in Chernobyl by Adam Higginbottom. We have Say Nothing by Patrick Radden-Keefe. These are ones that I've read, by the way. Women of No Importance by Serena Purnell. The Only Plane in the Sky by Garrett M. Graff. Heartbeat of Wounded Knee by David Truer. and that is all of the ones that I read. So this particular like history and biography, I really love this stuff. I love reading genres, particularly out of, if I had to choose any of the nonfiction categories, it would definitely be this. Like, lots of strong feelings about many of these books. Midnight in Chernobyl, that's strong contender. Say Nothing, definitely a strong contender, could have won. Oh, I also read The Pioneers, by the way. Wow, missed that one, but not super strong contender. A little bit too rah-rah America for me. The Only Plane in the Sky, gut-wrenching. Goddamn, like I freaking put it in my like favorite shelf. I love this book. Heartbeat of Wounded Knee, again, strong contender. My heart wants to tell you like The Only Plane in the Sky, but it's like Heartbeat of Wounded Knee is like breathtaking. It's so good. I love like so many of these books that I like, at least those four that I really like gravitated to, that I think any of them could have easily won over. So I just think it's a popularity contest. Get why this one, you know, Jack the Ripper's huge and true crime is huge. So it'd be hard for my heart, my books, my four favorite books to beat out that. So I'm going to go to Science and Technology. So the winner is Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs by Caitlin Doughty. I actually pre-ordered this book and I have a signed copy. It's over there. I think, right, you can, I think it is like just in screen. I thought that this was adorable and delightful. It was funny. It was everything that like a Caitlin Doughty book constantly gives you. And it's dark, macabre, and all of like the most wonderful ways. The artwork is adorable and perfect and tasteful. It's a little bit less sciencey than I would particularly like, but that being said, every single thing that she references in the books is backed up by science. So the other books that I read in this category, I did not read a lot. I do really enjoy science. Just not all parts of science. I'm really partial to biology. Things like Weapons of Math Destruction, Invisible Women by Carolyn Criado Perez. That was really good. Then we have The Body by Bill Bryson. I liked the second half more than I liked the first half, but that's just because I really like hearing descriptions of how the human body functions, and that was a lot of the first half, and the second half was not. It was more of like how to deal with like old age, and there's a whole like pandemic bit, which is gonna feel real weird and next time someone reads it. Do I want to say that of the three that I read, like Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs deserve to win? I want to say yes, because it was like, it was really cute and so fun, and Caitlin Doughty does have this amazing following. But I also want to say no, because like Invisible Women was really good. I really liked that one. Either one winning, I would have been happy and pleased with. And again, I didn't read, oh shit, fuck, god damn it, I'm dumb. I read Underland, and I also read The Unattainable Earth. Oh my god, I'm such a dumb ass. Again, both these books, really, really good. Unattainable Earth, about global warming. It's hard to read, but also really good. Underland is just a collection of things that are underground, and some of them I enjoyed more than others. Really like the archaeology ones and the biology ones, especially when talking about the Wood Wide Web. I do think I enjoyed Invisible Women more than the other two, but I don't know. And what I said stands. But really, any of those four, minus The Body, would have worked for me. Food and cookbooks. I didn't look at any of their cookbooks. I will say I did look at Antony in the Kitchen. I'm going to be honest, I did not read it cover to cover because it's a cookbook. I did read through some of the recipes, and I made some of the recipes, and I'll throw up some pictures of some of the food I made. It was good. Each of the recipes slapped. I made them for my family. We all enjoyed them. I am very partial to the soup recipes, or at least tomato soup recipes they have for the grilled cheese. That I make for myself on a regular basis. And the chickpea masala is not authentic, but it's still good. I felt like there was a variety. Some of the ingredients were like very specific, and some steps I just thought a little bit unnecessary. I would have loved to make more of the dishes, but I just didn't. But I would like make more recipes from this cookbook, and I didn't read any other cookbooks. So do I think it deserved to win? Sure. Do I think it won because it's attached to the Queer Eye? Yes. Comics and graphic novels. Pumpkinheads. I don't like Pumpkinheads the way everyone else does. It's beloved. I thought it was just fine. It was cute, it was fluff, but I just didn't care following these two friends running around a pumpkin patch and eating snacks. I read one other, and that is They Called Us Enemy, which I really, really enjoyed. I am very partial to that book, but I also love George Takei. Hearing his story, especially about his childhood in the internment camps, was an interesting thing for me to read. I enjoyed it a lot. Based off of the 2 data points that I have of books that I have read from this, I do think that They Called Us Enemy deserve to win, and I think that Pumpkinheads won because of all of the hype around it. So on to poetry. Poetry, not my thing. I don't poetry. I don't know how to explain it other than I don't care what color the freaking wheelbarrow is, and I don't care about the fucking chickens. I also think poetry works better aloud, which is why you should read Shakespeare instead of, or you should listen and see Shakespeare rather than read it. That's just my tea. So audiobooks help, and I read Shout with the audiobook. I thoroughly enjoyed Shout. I didn't read any of the poetry. What I really liked about Shout is that it is a narrative. You're following her story, and it gets more or less allegorical at some points and encapsulates more and less people at some points, but it overall is telling a cohesive story. I did want to read The Mermaid's Voice Returns in this one, but I didn't. Ran out of time. Story of my life. Debut novel. I'm not going to say anything about this because Red, White, and Royal Blue won. Young adult fiction, 5 Feet Apart. I did not like that book. It pissed me off. It falls into like the sick lit genre, and like it's just fucking horny teenagers being really stupid, and I did not enjoy that. Will say though, like the coding rep in it, although it seems very like you don't know actually how to code there, Miss Rachel Lippincott. If I am wrong, please yell at me, but as someone who literally majors in coding, it's great to see, but also like, you don't make those mistakes at that state in development, honey. You don't know anything about how software is processed or the way that it goes through, because that's just not how it works. Did I read anything else in Best Young Adult Fiction? No. Young adult in general, I don't hate it, and I will read it, and I can enjoy it. I just feel like I've grown up a little bit and I'm not in high school anymore. I've heard good things about many of these books. I meant to read on the come up, but did that happen? No. Young adult fantasy science fiction, Wicked King Run by Holly Black. I did not enjoy this. I did not enjoy this. Fays aren't my thing in fantasy. Nope. I don't know what it is about Fae. I do not like it. I will say, this is the second book in a series. Second book, The Wicked King, made me want to read the third book, The Queen of Nothing, a lot more than the first book, The Cruel Prince, made me want to read the second book of The Wicked King. Points for that, I guess. Some of the other ones in this fantasy seem interesting. Wicked King just isn't for me, and I'm gonna have so much fun reading Queen of Nothing this year. So middle grade and children's. This is the book that I had to read the most for because it's Rick Riordan. This is The Tyrant's Tomb, Trials of Apollo. This I finished like this month in December because I realized, oh shit, I have 1 month to read one book. I need to read this now. So I reread the entirety of the original Percy Jackson series and the Heroes of Olympus series, which I enjoyed the first half of the series more than I enjoyed the second half of the series. So I was like, just theirs and 10 books, and then you have to read the actual Apollo books. So there you go. Like, this is the 4th book in the series. I really enjoyed Trials of Apollo. Yes, I think Rick Riordan is going to be winning this category until he drops dead. His books are just really great for middle grade, and they're enjoyable for adults too. And he just really understands the mythology he's talking about, at least within the Greek-Roman world. I cannot attest to the other worlds because I've not read the Magnus Chase books. I've only read one of the Kane Chronicles. That was a long time ago and I don't really remember much of it. There you go. Am I going to be reading those books now? Yes, because once I found out that Apollo was canonically bisexual and a friend told me that Magnus Chase has more queerness in it, I'm just like, I'm gonna have to read those. I didn't read any of the other books because Again, middle grade, not something that I read normally. This picture book, There's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, poetry of Fred Rogers. I did not like this book, but like, because I just don't care. I'm not a baby. I'm not a child. I have no children. So, and there are no children that I can get easy access to read these books to make experience more enjoyable to me. And on top of that, it's poetry. So already so many dings against you. I do think that it's a little bit too long. I think that if I had kids, they wouldn't want to read 50 poems. I know I wouldn't. I would just be like, okay, Mom, can we like read like Dr. Seuss or something? I can't do this Fred Rogers stuff. That being said, the messages in the book, they're great for kids to hear. And they're cute, sweet little poems that I could not stand reading because they're so repetitive and they're meant for children. Having to read like the same kind of line multiple times, saying like slightly different things, like I like to ride my pony, I like to ride my bike, I like to ride with daddy in the car, you know, this shit like that, like I did not like. But there is an audience for it. It was good in that respect, but I did not like it because of what it is. How do I feel about the GoodReads Choice Awards 2019 overall? Do I think it's a popularity contest? Yes. I don't think that's unwarranted, but in terms of like, for me, exploring new genres, I think that it was a fun time for the most part. Oh my god, I keep knocking this fucking thing. It was a fun time. I enjoyed it. I'm gonna do it again, just because I like to stretch my reading skills. I found some really, really great books. I found some books that I did not like. So I'm gonna have a fun time compiling the best and the worst lists. Worst list, I'm thinking gonna be easier because I did not read a lot of shitty books. Best lists, gonna be harder because I read a lot of really good books because I try to not read shitty books. Alright, that's gonna be it for me. I'm gonna go to sleep and wake up in the morning and work on those. I just realized I'm kind of being festive, and that was completely unintentional. So happy holidays. That's the end of this video.